bring up the filmmakers behind May December, director Todd Haynes. Samy, I want to start with you because one of the things I really love about this movie is the way you kind of keep shifting points of view. As an audience member, it's like you get invested in one character, you think it's their story, and move around. I'm curious for you, in terms of the origins of the screenplay, what was the starting point for you? Was it this kind of idea that you were going to shift points of view? Was there something you were more particularly interested in and that grew out from there?
Yeah, I mean, the very first seed of it really was thinking of, these tabloid stories, Mary Kay Turner-Case, thinking, which is something I always knew of, just as I always knew of OJ and Monica and against our will, really, all of it. But I was thinking at some point that they have kids that are probably going to become adults, and something about that image of a couple like this in an empty house was really exciting to me and emotional, especially with this idea of a man who's only 36 years old, with kids in college and having no time to process anything that's happened. So that was kind of the seed and the jumping off point, and then knowing that there was the space and coming in with an actress with something to prove, trying to get off her network television series about an animal hospital and all meeting there, and so that was the initial start of it, and knowing that there was this kind of investigative reporter element, and it's very fragmented because of we're like in the scene of a crime, and we're trying to reverse engineer how everything got there.
Well, it creates this really interesting tone. I mean, another thing I like about the movie is that it's very empathetic towards the characters, or sympathetic, whatever the right word is, but there's also this kind of ironic distance, and like you said, there's just such an act in and produce a movie, and then how did you know that Todd was the right guy to direct it?
Well, Jessica Alabama, who's one of our producers, sent me Samy's script, and I was so blown away with it as soon as I read it. It explores so many of the themes I've been obsessed with, and I feel like I return to, not necessarily consciously always, but about performance and identity and the construction of identity through various levels of performance, and these two incredible female characters in the center was so exciting. And Todd I've been dreaming of working with my entire career, and I've sent him scripts before that he didn't respond to. Being like, can we please work together? And always very kindly, he declines, but this time he read it and said yes, which is the dream of my life. And then to have him bring Julie with him and bring in Charles and the rest of our incredible cast was just like really, really a dream project.
So Todd, what was it this time that made you say yes?
Man, that script. I mean, look, I've been wanting a reason, a way to work with Natalie. I've been watching this extraordinary career unfold all these years, and it was gonna have to happen. But this came to me during COVID. There was a lot of speculation, we were sitting around reading. I was reading a lot more stuff than normal. But Samy's script was so distinctive and so confident, and had such a faith in the reader to sort of maneuver between these themes as they are presented and then as they start to shift. And you're immediately aware of yourself as you're reading it. And I found that to be just so stimulating and so, of course, like begging and itching questions about how it could be brought to a screen and preserve that sense of excited and engaged readership on the part of the viewer that was pleasurable and disturbing and constantly shifting. And so, and I just started talking to Natalie about the script, and we started to talk to Samy about the script. And Natalie's like fearlessness and interest in all of those areas of, discomfort and discomfiture, and her curiosity about the way people might project thinking about Natalie Portman playing an actress, and is this really how Natalie Portman is? And her like mischievous kind of like, yeah. Bring it on, let's go there. And I thought of, she reminded me of somebody. And here was this other role. And I didn't want to say anything to Natalie until I shared it with Julianne, and was like, hey, check this out. Hey, would you want to do this? And she was like, are you gonna direct this? I said, yeah. And she was like, yeah. And then I was like, Natalie, what do you think of Julianne Moore for Grace?
And then I blacked out.
Well, Natalie, I mean, were you thinking when you gave the script to Todd, I mean, at some level you must think, like, he's gonna go to Julianne Moore with this part, right? I mean, it just seems like a given. Well,
I mean, Safe is like a seminal film for me. It's like maybe the best performance of all time. Like, it's just really, really such a masterwork from both of you. And I mean, it was crazy to get to work with both of you together. Like, I dared to dream I might maybe once get the chance alone with each of you, but together it was like.
Yeah, well, Julianne, you and Todd have obviously done multiple great movies together. I mean, Far From Heaven is also a masterpiece. How has together evolved, and what are the initial conversations the two of you have when you're going to start working on something like this?
It's interesting because the most amazing thing about meeting Todd was it was the first time in my life where I felt like I didn't have to explain myself to somebody, and that I felt that I understood instinctively what he wanted, and it was weird. When we made Safe, we barely spoke. We didn't have time really, but I mean, we didn't kind of. I felt like he could communicate. He communicated in his script, in his shot list, in his framing. Everything he did gave me the information that I needed, and so I feel like that relationship has evolved over time through these other movies, but it's also remained pretty consistent. And so I don't know. So I mean, I was utterly thrilled when he slipped me this script, and I was like, wow, here's another kind of foray into an exploration of identity and culture and female narrative, and it just felt like a wonderful continuation of the work I've been allowed to do with him. And then Natalie too, who I absolutely adore, is just the best partner in the world, really, truly.
Well, and then, obviously one of the exciting discoveries for me watching the movie was how great Charles is in it. So, what was the process? Getting to him? I mean, obviously Natalie and Julianne, that was pretty quick. How long did it take to find your Joe?
It was a process that was it's always an exciting process to try to find roles. Laura Rosenbaum, my casting director, I've been working since 1998 on Goldmine. So we have this long, rich, intimate, creative partnership. And when a role is presented to us in film, upon which the film so relies to work, it's like, yeah, let's see, where are we gonna find this? And I suspected it would be somebody whose work I may not know, and that was true for Charles. And he read, among some really fine actors who sent tapes, but he time right in front of you coming into itself. And so we had put him and Julianne in the room together among the last couple people we were considering.
So, Charles, when you did that first self-tape, like, did you just have sides? Were you able to read the whole script? How much did you know about this movie when you were doing that initial audition?
When I first got the sides in the script, I saw that Natalie Portman was attached. Julianne Moore. Directed by Todd Haynes. And my heart dropped with excitement. And that led to a just 6-week process of self-taping. And I really kind of gave everything I could throughout that process to really, I felt this immediate connection to Joe and what this man represented. The sense of this arrested development and this immense responsibility given to him at such a young age, and just exploring that through Samy's script. I mean, she lays it out so beautifully, and it was really exciting to embark on Joe's story, and then to end up in Savannah, Georgia, with Todd, Natalie, and Julie. I mean, it was it's very surreal, and they are masters, icons, legends, and what they do, and they only just elevated and encouraged me. I'm really grateful for that.
Well, Todd mentioned the way you kind of like put yourself inward. And that was something I thought I've seen the movie a couple of times now. And like I was viewing tonight, I was really struck by all the sort of nuances of the physical aspect of your performance and body language. I mean, how quickly did you arrive at that? And what was your thinking behind the way this guy carries himself? And did you gain weight for it? What kinds of things did you do to kind of transform yourself physically?
There was a lot of internal just work. There's this kind of this repressed feeling that Joe has deep down inside that he's been carrying for a long time. And Todd and I had personal conversations about my own life, and really Joe, and just not so much what he would look like, but what he would feel like. And that just, and thinking about that, and just kind of the emotional makeup of Joe, I've found that it can live in the physical aspect of who he is and how he walked and talked, and and where he found comfort being a suburban father of 3 kids, a loving husband, and it really provided the opportunity for me to eat whatever I wanted every night, and it was incredible. Who knew there are so many different flavors of ice cream? But I feel like there's so much that we can express with our physicality without saying anything at all, and that was really just with Samy's writing, it just opened that up for me, and with Todd just holding my hand the whole way through.
And Samy, once the actors are cast, do you tweak the script at all according to the actors, and is the script changing at all during the casting process and as you get closer to production?
Well, I mean, when Natalie, I met Natalie and Todd in the same room, and Natalie, the producer, we right from the beginning, the 3 of us were talking about the script notes, and there's so much insight into all of it, but also, of course, all these characters. But no, I mean, things came up as things came up, but it wasn't like, tailoring. It was a more natural process than that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Natalie, Todd was mentioning your character. I mean, I think basically, let me ask you this. Okay, so your character, there is this whole self-aware, sort of meta aspect to it that's interesting, and obviously, on one hand, you could say you've been preparing to play an actress your whole life, but were there other actresses that you had in mind that you were kind of modeling this character on?
Oh, that's a trap. That is a very sneaky question. No, she's a complete figment of my imagination. Just supported by Samy's brilliant writing.
And Julie,
The decision was twofold. I mean, as I was kind of starting to work on this, the script is deceptive, in its simplicity, but it really is very, very muscular and holds a lot of emotional information. And as I was kind of working my way through it, trying to figure out who Gracie was and how I was going to play her, one of the things that was interesting was the way she kind of was commanding people in the house, and I couldn't get a hold on it. I didn't know why. I didn't understand it. And then, kind of deeper, I went into it, and I realized that she, here's this woman who just transgressed so greatly, had a relationship with a 13-year-old boy, and had characterized it as true love. True love. And in order to do that, she had to make that boy a man, and she has to stay a child. So she's hyper feminine, very childlike, sort of, and presents in this slightly, exaggerated way. And I thought, what are these characteristics that would lead you to see that? The way she dresses, her hair, whatever. And then, of course, there's a vocal quality. And I called Todd one time and said, I'm just messing around with your lips. And I was nervous about it. I think Todd was nervous about it too. But I need to make these choices because I also have to offer Natalie something to imitate. You can't just do something and be like, you have to, the whole point of the movie is that she, turns into me. And so that sort of hyper-feminization and gestural stuff like that, and also vocal choice kind of lends itself to that, So it felt scary, that choice, actually.
Burden on Julianne was so extraordinary that we had no rehearsal time. It was a 23-day schedule. Natalie and Julianne and I spent a lot of time on the phone talking about the characters, preparing the wig choices, the color of the wigs, the look, the clothes. But Julianne had to come up with who Gracie was instantly because we were shooting it. And it was going to have to be something that Natalie could then latch onto and derive elements that would help that transformation of her character. We weren't shooting in sequence. This was just the feat that these three actors underwent under those circumstances. And in these shots, there are shots I love, and the ability to hold on the frame and these mirror shots, but it takes the actors to make you understand exactly what's happening and to play into the camera lens as the reflection of themselves, and then play right off the lens as the reflection of the other. There was no mirror there. That was conveyed by the performances, and then to hold these long scenes and to play that out like they're really living in the frame, in the scene that we're watching, and to be, for us all, to be so compelled by every beat, and as much by what isn't said as what is said between them. It's just a remarkable thing. You can come up with all these cool shots and ideas derived from Bergman and elsewhere, but if the performances don't deliver, it doesn't work.
yeah, well, it's funny you brought up Bergman, so I was thinking about Bergman a lot watching this movie, and especially in those mirror shots and things. And I was wondering from Natalie and Julianne, what the technical difficulties were of doing those mirror shots. Because again, having seen the movie a few times, tonight I was just thinking how weird it must be to be playing those scenes.
Oh, yeah, it was an amazing innovation that Todd brought to the vision, that so much was in the mirror. There's so much, and that the camera played the mirror for so much of it, because it's so much how sometimes when we're looking at ourselves, it's still performance. We're we're still performing in all those places, and also how these characters reflect each other and how much they're repulsed and attracted to what they recognize in themselves. And it was incredible, but technically it was very complicated. Sometimes, like, I mean, I remember the day that we were doing the scene in the dressing shop where her daughter's trying on the graduation dress, and we had to have like a mark for where we see ourselves, a mark for where we saw her, mark for where we saw each other, and it was all X's in the camera. It was just like, you know, and then having to remember what that meant, and it was technically, and every time, I mean, every mirror scene is like that.
But also really pleasurable too, you know, I loved it because there was a degree of difficulty that kind of makes you raise your bar, you know? So, and then seeing ourselves reflected, like, you didn't necessarily see yourself when you looked at your mark, but I could see Natalie through a mirror. And then you have the sensation of being able to see yourself next to somebody or in a different position, and it's stimulating, and stimulating for these characters too, who are both so in love with their own images, their own stories, and I think are very intent on flattering and seducing each other too. And one of the things that Natalie did so beautifully, and I so admired it, is that, you know, in her observations of me, she managed to, she flattered and seduced me as a character in her imitation, right? You know, so it's like, as I could see her out of the corner of my eye, you know, doing and copying my behavior, but in the most graceful and beautiful way, so that Gracie herself would approve and say, yes, that's who I am. That's what I look like, you know? And then at the same time, you know, it kind of reassured me as a character that when I would see the movie, I'd see stuff that was even kind of more precise and more biting that I didn't see as a character or an actor. And it was just brilliant, really brilliant.
Well, you know, and going back to the Bergman thing, probably the most explicit Bergman reference in the movie is when Natalie reads the letter to camera. It's, you know, it's very reminiscent of Winter Light. I was wondering, you talk a little bit about conceptualizing that scene, you know, where you came up with the idea to borrow from Winter Light there, and then Natalie, if you could talk a little bit about performing that shot.
When I read Samy's script, I read that monologue, and I immediately remembered that scene in Winter Light where Julianne delivers a letter to the lens of the camera, and I think it doesn't happen anywhere else in Winter Light, that direct address, to the priest character, another quite a love letter, and a symmetrical, gorgeously lit, this frame against a neutral background. And I said to myself, I have to direct this movie, if only to shoot that scene. Because it just knocked my socks off when I saw it as a teenager, and I never forgot it. And in many ways, the ideas of the mirror were ways of justifying that initial desire to try to tell that scene that way. We at least were able, we shot out of sequence, but we were at least able to shoot all the in scenes of the in Natalie is saying, and at the end, and that scene was the second to the last day of the shoot. So we could build to it in that regard, because it is sort of the apotheosis of Elizabeth's transformation into Gracie.
Yeah, it was really incredible. I mean, Todd creates such an amazing environment to work in and play in. He's so like unconditionally loving and like generous and kind that you feel super safe to try anything. And then he's also has such a specific vision that he communicates so well, so you really understand tonally. And he had dozens of references of films and images that we all were given access to, so we all were so conscious of the tone and the story we were telling together, which was so crucial because we didn't have that prep time together, we didn't have a long time to work together, and then it was also so prepared, so you really, it was just a very calm environment where the drama could be kept for the scene, which is the best way to work. And we really were able to play. We had time for many takes, and we got to try different things and have that excitement. Like, really emotional. What if we had these variations? And we really got to try things, and it was thrilling. And we talked about a lot at the beginning about how much she performs always, even when she's just being just down to earth and normal. Star or TV star, like, show up at a barbecue. It's all performance, and then suddenly when she's performing is maybe when she's the most truthful, and like having that flip somehow, that like that's where the emotional truth comes out, and yeah, that was the kind of goal.
Todd, I'm gonna ask you about the music, because I have to say, I knew I was gonna made reference to that I do for every film, but in this case, because of the tight schedule, and also there was a lot of new relationships for me in this movie. Sam will send out a production, right? It was the first time I worked with Sam, it was just so incredible. And April Napier, the costume designer, who also has worked on Kelly Reichardt's movies, and I knew from her films. And then Ed Lockman, my DP, who I've been working with since 2002 on Far From Heaven. And he was going to shoot this movie, and he broke his femur bone on a film that he was doing, and it was very close to pre-production. And I worked with Chris Lava for the first time. He was Kelly's main partner. But I was putting together all the images and trying to think of the image, but I wanted to share. The reason I brought this up is that I was sharing everything with everybody because we had so little time and there was a lot of new relationships. So it was just opening the door to the whole creative process. Around this time, I just happened to watch The Go-Between on TCN, and it's a film. It's a gorgeous and beautifully, well received, very well known and well coveted film, nominated for Best Picture, won the Palme d'Or in 1971, but not known that well in the United States. It doesn't get circulated. It's sort of fallen out of distribution. It's very hard to even stream it and to buy a DVD of it in English. So of course TCN exposes us to these gems, and I watched this film, and the score by Michel Legrand knocked my socks off. It was like a slap in the face at the opening credits of that film, and it puts you on alert, and it makes you start to become an active reader and be questioning every inch of the frame as it unfolds, looking for clues as to where the ominous tone of this music is taking us, and what's behind the story that seems to be this sort of bucolic coming of age story about this kid. So I just said, I attached that score to the link to the image book and said, okay guys, turn the pages of the image book and listen to this music. This is what I'm thinking. And we did. And then on the flight to Savannah, Georgia, I thought, from my composer Marcello, I thought, you know what? I think I'm just gonna spot the places where I think music might play in the script on the plane. And then I laid into all those places different cues from The Go-Between as an example, and sent it to Marcello and said, Marcello, this is what I'm thinking. Think about it. He's a very busy guy, and I thought maybe he would have sketches he might send us. But we had all this information, and so we started to play the music while shooting the movie. The very first shot is Natalie driving up to the community center to go into the flower arranging scene. And I said to my assistant, Ben, hit it. And the whole crew was like, on here, where are we going? But it put us all in the same tonal place, the same interpretive mode, and put us all together in the creative sort of adventure of this movie and the risk of this movie. And we continued to do so through the whole course of the shoot. And then I ended up cutting to the score. And then I had to go to Marcello and say, dude, I think we might have to, it's connected to the DNA of how this film is working. And can we adapt it and incorporate it into the original music you have written and rearrange it and re-record it? And it was just a match without all that. Well, I'm getting the signal that we're out of time, but I really, appreciate you guys coming out.